Hey, how's it going? I'm Alvin, and I'm the head of marketing at Tick. And in this video, I'm going to kind of do a pretty deep dive into Tick. We're going to go through most of the pages in the app. We're going to look at a lot of the different features. And hopefully, this is useful for you in evaluating whether or not Tick's a good fit for your company. And if you do think it's a good fit, hopefully, it'll be useful for you to onboard your team so you're not peppered with questions on how to do things or how you want things set up. That you can kind of use this video as part of your training. All right, so we'll start off on the projects page. And the reason we're starting on the projects page is because all time entries in Tick are held inside of projects. And that's because the whole goal of Tick is to help you run more profitable projects. We don't want you just tracking time to run payroll, but we want to make sure you're helping you become as efficient as possible and having better projects, and for those projects being more profitable and for you to get more done in a short amount of time. All right, so we'll start off on this page. You can scroll down, see all the active projects we have at any given time. Up here, we just have a search bar. So as your company gets larger, you can just search. So we can, right here, we've got a project over here called the lunch wheel. And pull that up. And at the very top, we've got these pinned projects. So pinned projects are going to be ones that, ones we think we're going to be working on quite a bit. We're kind of creating a little dashboard. So if we pin one up there, you can see which ones are over budget, which ones are on track, and you get a good feel for how your company is doing. And so if you were maybe, let's say that you're a project manager, you put the ones that you're really responsible for up here. It's a quick place to check them out, and you can also dive into them a little bit more. So we'll create a project and kind of look at the different components. So you can create a project if you have a integration set up. So I've just kind of got 3 integrations set up with Trello, Basecamp, and Asana. You could go ahead and you can actually import a project for one of those so you're not replicating everything. But we'll just start with a blank project for now. So we start off with a client name. I'll do one for my client, HirePixels. HirePixels is a development company, and then we'll do a new project. So we will create a new app, and we'll just say it's just a new marketing site. All right, so it's for a social media company. We're building a new marketing site, and then we have to come up with a budget. So not everybody, this isn't intuitive to everybody why we should have a budget. And the reason we're going to have a budget, and we really I'd recommend putting this on anything, is early on in the project, you want to get a good feel for, here's where we think this project's going. This project is going to be a 100-hour project or $10,000 project. And it will help you kind of stay on track with your project. And it also will help you in the future for forecasting costs if you are going to come up with estimates for future clients, if you're doing client work, or even if it's internal. You'll want to know when you accept a project and you kind of rally the team to work on something, have an idea of how long things are going to take. So the first piece is to kind of come up with a guess how long this project will take. So this is always going to be in hours. And the reason we're working in hours is because we want it to be really clear to people how much time they have to accomplish a task. So if you told someone on your team who maybe they're being billed out at $150 an hour, and you told them you have $600 worth of time to finish this page, that may not instantly connect in their head how long they had to work on it. But if you told them you have 4 hours to finish this page, there's more of a sense of urgency. There's more of a opportunity for them to think through, okay, if I'm working on it now, so that's really the end of the day. We can work to the end of the day, and they have an idea for the scope of how much work they can put into it. The project has a huge budget. Mostly people take a little bit longer to work on it. And so it's a good way to help everyone conceptualize how much time is available. So we'll just say this project is going to be 100 hours. We can set it to be billable or not billable. So this would be like maybe you have an internal project you're not going to ever bill a client. You could turn that off. Only this one is billable. And then we'll do a couple tasks. So we're doing design. So we'll start off just with the standard design. This will be kind of like the concept. And we'll say that that's 20 hours. We're going to have some meetings. Maybe we'll do 20 hours of meetings and email CSS. And that will be like a majority of our work. So we try to shoot for between maybe 4 and 10 tasks. If you get really in depth with hundreds of tasks, which it's not uncommon for me to see people set things up that way, but when you do have tons of tasks, it gets kind of confusing for people on where to put time. So I've seen it where people will set up as emails with clients, but also client communications, and then they'll have another one called replies to inquiries. And if you had someone who's replying to an email from a client that's also inquiry, they could put in one of each of those buckets. And your time, all these tasks and really the reports they generate later on are only going to be as valuable as the data that's put in. So when we're limiting a task list, we're making sure that everyone has a good feel for where to put time. Now, in this example, if you're working on the design concepts, you're putting into one bucket. Meetings, that's really clear. HTML, CSS, and if it's anything else, we're putting in this other category. So you could make any of these not billable. Maybe you told your client, we never bill for meetings. You could turn that off. And that's totally optional. And if you have other projects going on, you could use them as a template for your current project. So if you do lots of websites, or you manage social media for lots of people, or you're, maybe you're billing by the hour for landscaping work, any type of those projects, you could be, if you do the same type of thing a lot, we could import the tasks from other projects, keep all of them consistent, and then you're able to kind of, when we run reports later, consistency will allow us to spot trends. We'll go down here into a little bit more advanced options. So we can select certain people to be on the project. So I'll put just a few of the people on here. And so now we've got 3 people. We'll be able to limit this so that not everybody's on every project. Really valuable if you've got a larger company, or if you maybe have a company with people in different areas, so maybe different departments or physical locations. You don't want everybody in your Tokyo office tracking time with everybody in your New York office. Or if you're even using a couple of freelancers, maybe you don't want a freelancer seeing everything in the account. You just want them to see certain projects they're working on, and I'll assign them. Then we have the option for email notifications. These are going to be really useful for very large projects. So, let's say you get a really large project, it's something on the order of $100,000 or more, and you want to have kind of these big email blasts to go out to all the people on your account and say, hey, we hit a big milestone. We've used 50% of the budget. Have everybody kind of go through their head, we're about halfway through the project. As far as we've spent the time's been half used. Are we halfway done with the work? So it kind of, there are little triggers for you to kind of consider how you're doing. And then recurring projects. So if you do something every month, this is best for someone you have on a client, on a retainer, maybe your IT company, and you provide a couple, maybe for $2,000 a month, you're providing up to 25 hours of IT work. You could create a recurring project. What that will do is at the end of the month, we'll close out the project. And at the beginning of the next month, we'll open a brand new one. Just like this, have the same tasks, budgets. It would just tell you what month it was for. So if we did ongoing marketing sites for the social media company, we'd have one for May, and then we'd have one for June, and then one for July. But the nice thing there is if someone's paying you for a set amount of time each month, you really don't want them checking in 4 days before the end of the month and going, hey, got a great new idea. Let's run. We've never done Twitter ads, and you help us with ads, so do some Twitter ads. Let's do it. Let's do it all by the end of the month. Well, if they haven't used any of their time, that might be something that would be reasonable for you to do. If they've used almost all of their time, you'll be able to see that really quickly from that dashboard. And then you can say, we've used all of your retainer money up. We could do a one-off, and we could charge you a couple $1,000s to do that. Or we could bump this to next month. But it will give you really clear insight as to how much time you're investing in each of your retainer clients. All right, so we just created this marketing site, and there we go. I'll pin it up here. And now we pinned it, we've got our 3 projects. See, we haven't billed any time. So now we'll head to our time card, and this is where we're going to track all of our time. So the time card UI is going to be pretty consistent depending, through all the apps. So you could use Chrome extension, you could use a phone app, iOS or Android. You could use a Mac app. You can use Apple Watch. All sorts of different apps, and they're all going to have a pretty similar look and feel. You have a date strip across the top, so you can select what day you're working on, projects, tasks, and time. And those are the 3 required fields. So we'll just search. So we're doing social media. There we go, our marketing site for social media. And then we get our tasks. So we'll say we're doing a meeting. Then we can enter our time, and no matter how you enter your time, Tick will be able to handle it and will convert it. So, if you are comfortable, you just 4.3 hours. Maybe you don't use decimal notation much, so you'd rather just 4 hours and 18 minutes. So if you just use a colon, then we're doing hours and minutes. Just say do the actual minutes themselves. So you don't have to have hours on there. Or if you're in a country that uses different delineators, you could do 418. So however it's easy for you to enter time, Tick will be able to handle it. So we'll put it in this way. And for notes. So notes are never required. I really like entering notes. When you're first kicking off time tracking inside your organization, everybody knows it's going to be kind of tough to start getting everyone on board and creating this new habit of tracking your time throughout the day. And what notes will do is when you miss time, they will help you recreate your day later on so you can catch the little pieces of time you may miss. So let's say for this, project we're working on here, if I put in 4.3 hours for meetings, maybe I had 2 or 3 different meetings that day. And so when I'm trying to go back and recreate my day or see what I was working on, having these notes will help me figure out which meetings have already been logged, so which ones haven't. You could, as a supervisor or project manager, you could see what particular issues people are working on. And if you're someone who earlier when we are back here on the projects page cringed when I said don't do more than 10 tasks, and you went, no, I want more focus. I want to be able to drive down and see even more about what happened on this project, during these few hours. Have people enter notes. And notes are a great way to get that info without cluttering all of your reports. So we'll just say this was a meeting with client lead on creative direction. Let's try our time. Now, whenever you enter time inside of Tick, if we've got those budgets, we're going to get instant budget feedback. And this is going to be what makes Tick a little bit different from our competitors. We're going to really just keep focusing on how is this project doing? And this info is going to be passed to everyone on the team every time they enter a time entry. And so everyone's comfortable with how the project is progressing. Now, everybody doesn't need to know what work's been performed. They may know I'm working on, I'm the client lead. So I'm in all the meetings. Well, then that task of meetings is really important to you. But maybe if you're the designer and you're a lead designer and you're working on the design piece, this task isn't important to you, but you'll be able to see how your own task is progressing. So I'll show you a little bit more how this will work. So we'll pull this project back up, and I'll say we have maybe a little bit of the HTML CSS work being performed. And now the project those are moving in sync, and the tasks are obviously going to be different because they're being allocated different task budgets. But everybody on your team is going to get this, and the real value there is that you'll always have a clear idea of how much work has been performed, and it can allow you to become proactive rather than reactive in reevaluating the scope of a project and how much you charge for it. So let's think of an example. If in this situation, I'll go and I'll edit this time entry, we're already up. It took 7 hours to just create a very small piece of this marketing site that we're working on. You might look down, you're going, wow, that task is already at 14%. And it's because your client wants a beautiful site that looks like something like what Stripe would have. And it's got all these little cool animations. And to do that, it's taking a lot more time than what you expected. Well, your designer now can look and say, I've maybe done 2% of the pages we want to do, and I've used 14% of the budget. Well, real quickly, they can see this, they see how far off they are from tracking to be on budget, and instantly can reach out to a project manager or the client and say, the expectations we have for this aren't in line with how much we're charging. You could either change the budget, you could change how much you're charging, or you could pare down the scope. And if those conversations happen at the beginning of the project, you're much more likely to get buy-in from your client or an adjustment to how much you're making, or even if it's an internal project, you're going to get much more buy-in from the team if you're setting realistic expectations. And sometimes you don't really know what those expectations should be until you begin the project. So that'll be really useful so you can make those adjustments as you need. So over here on the right, we're getting these quick links, and as we've added different tasks of meetings and HTML, CSS, we can click those, and they're going to pop into here into the time card. So we could do it with any of the ones that I'm working on. So maybe if I'm doing some link building for this Coca-Cola SEO campaign, I can put in a little time for that. And up at the top, we're going to get these little discs that are going to fill up for each day. And what those discs are going to do is they're a visual cue to help you get a feel for how much time you've entered for each day. So if I was looking at this right now, I'd see, these are going to, I guess I should say, these are filling up towards a full 8-hour day. So I could see on Thursday, it looks like I've got a full day of time entered. And it was a pretty rigorous day. I put in almost 12 hours of work. Back here on Wednesday, I can see I've done about half my day, 4 hours. Tuesday, we could, put in 2.1 hours. And I'm doing some more work on that Jimmy's Chicken Shack rebranding campaign. And as I enter them, you can see these discs are filling up. So it's really useful that maybe you come into work on Thursday, you can look back and say, hey, I've only got half of my Wednesday completed. Why don't I try to see what time I may have dropped off? Because the further away you get from the actual time the work was performed, so if you're working on Wednesday, that's when you're performing the work. That's really when you want to enter it. And the further away you get, the less of a chance you have of accurately tracking your time. And if you want to be super accurate, what I would recommend, and I'll just pull up another task, is running a timer. So what a timer does is we're going to get to the second information about what we're working on throughout the day. And you can see up here in the tab, it's actually going to track, how the timer's going. So you could be over here, you can open up a new page and be working on something else completely. And you can see this task timer continuing, excuse me. And then we could open up a new one. So we'll pull up the Frying Dutchman court case, and we can start a timer for this one. We could have as many timers as going at the time as we'd like. But we only ever really working on one project. So as soon as I start going back to these design concepts, it flips and it pauses this discovery work on this court case. And so we can it's a really good way to get to the second information about what you worked on. And so if you think of someone who's maybe taking calls all day long from clients and they're trying to answer emails and they're really switching tasks a lot, why don't you just hit play, and maybe you don't even know what you're working on. Maybe you just get a call, and you know it's from a client, and you just know you need to take it. Well, you start another timer. We don't even know what it's for yet. But once we know, we'd be able to assign it to a project. So that's a little bit of how we can work with timers. Once they're done, we've said, okay, at the end of the day, I've done all the work on these. You can go ahead and enter your time. And if they have projects and tasks associated, they would update. Neither of these projects do, so we won't get any of that budget feedback. So that's a little bit of what we've got going on the time card. You can also go down here and see a weekly timesheet. So with my weekly timesheet, I can check out what have I been working on this week. So you can see the projects or the clients, projects, each individual task, and then what day the work was performed. So these are a great way at the end of the week to kind of get a feel for where you're spending your time. If you have if you have more than one person on your account, you can run it for everybody's time card. If you're like an admin, you could print it, and you get a nice print view with signature lines for supervisors and for users. If you want to have kind of a paper, something you can hold that says this is what work someone's performed. And that's going to be really good if you're ever running payroll off of these. You want people to, kind of affirm, yes, this is the work I performed this week. Here you go. I'm turning it in to get paid on it. All right. So now we've checked out the time card, let's go over to reporting. So we've got two main reports inside of Tink, and then we've got a custom report. So one is going to be which projects need attention. So this is something people often want to know. Which projects in my entire company need a little attention? And so when we jump in, we're able to see which ones are over budget that really needs some help. This rebranding campaign looks like it's totally out of hand. This website development for Higher Pixels is quite a bit over. We see we've got a webinar that's getting close. So you can go through and get a feel for how these are all performing based on their budgets. And the budgets are all going to be listed in order of how much of the budget has been used. So if you're a project manager or you're a CEO of a company, you're looking and you're going, I've got to figure out why this rebranding campaign is at 4 times the budget we had. We only said we're going to spend 5 hours, probably losing our shirts on this project. I want to dive in, figure out what's going on, and see if we can turn it around. And another question people ask a lot is, how did past projects turn out? So if, let's say we're having somebody come to us and say, I want you to build me a website, and I have a law firm, and I'd like you to build me a website for a law firm. You can go to how did past projects turn out? Say, do I have any law firms? Have I run projects for them before? Let me see. Let me look at all my projects, and I'm going to go through here and see, if any of these, which of these kind of line up, which of these projects look like something similar to what I'm being asked to do, and then I can budget, check out the budget versus the actual amount of time spent. And then we've got the custom report. So the custom report is going to allow you to slice and dice data however you'd like. So you can pick your own the date range, which clients you want to report on, which people, whose time entries you want to collect, how you want to group the report. You can keep certain parts of the time not included. So it's really up to you to create the type of report you really want. So I'll run one for this month. Say I want all the time entries for this month and give it to me for all my clients and all my people. And we run that. Here we go. We can see how much time's been entered, and based on people's billable rates, we're able to see how much how much money we've billed. And we could drill down into any of these projects and look more at the work that's being performed. This is once we have a report, we're feeling good about it, we could export this in any way we want. So you could export it to set up an integration with something like FreshBooks or QuickBooks, whatever invoicing software you would like to use. We could push all these time entries to an invoicing platform, or we could just export a CSV, and you could create pivot tables, till the cows come home. Do whatever you'd like on a CSV, so you can manipulate that data exactly how you would like it. You could do a print view. Print views are going to be really good if you want to run like a pre-bill, or if you want to put the time entries behind your own invoice. So maybe you just do kind of a cover letter invoice for your clients. You could just say, hey, give me for the Coca-Cola SEO, I'll put this behind my cover letter to Coca-Cola. So you could, do a page break between all these projects and print the report. And we could also run something like this by people. So this is another view you may want to look at. We'll do audits so you get a feel for how this might look. So you could go back through all of the people on this account, and only some people actually have billable rates entered. And you could see how much time they've entered on the account, how much they've billed, what projects they're working on. We could, again, drill down into the specific projects. And what's going to be valuable here is maybe you want to run this for all time, but maybe you'd want to run it just for this week. And you want to be able to look at it, your team at the end of Friday, and run it for this week. Show me what people have billed. And it would be a good way for you to get an idea of who's getting all their time entered, because most of the people are working, but they're maybe not getting all their time entered. And you could check in with people, ask people to enter some more time, go check, make sure everything they have done has been entered. You probably want to run this before you ever do a bill so that you know that everything's accurate. And one thing we will do on the Tick side is that every Friday at 3, we'll send an email out to everybody on your account, and it will just say, here's what you entered for this week. It's kind of just a long email, all of the time entries. And you've got 32 hours of time entered. And if you think you're missing anything, now's a good time. Just click here and we can enter some more time for you. So it's a good kind of a trigger reminder to get people to hop into Tick, enter the last few time entries, and get it all included. And that's kind of an idea of how we work inside of the reports. One of the other things you can do is you can lock and unlock time entries. So if I were to drill down into this, and I want to change some time entries, I'll do it for something that we just are working on. So this new, the new marketing page. So let's say we want to change some of these time entries. We just go in here, click this edit button, and it says it was only 1 minute of work. I know that was really supposed to be 2 hour, 0.2 rather than 0.02. Update that time entry, add notes, make any changes you really would like. But sometimes you don't want people to be able to change things. So when we're on the reports, we want to be able to lock time. So let's run this report again. And what we'll do, so we've got all this time. Let's say we want to lock it. And we just go ahead and lock those time entries. And what happens when we're locking time entries is We're making it so they can never be edited. So now if we were to drill down into that time entry we edited just a second ago, instead of a little edit icon, there's a lock. And so it could never be changed. And what we would want to do this every time we're exporting time out of Tick. So if it was going to your invoicing software or you were running payroll, you don't want your time entries inside of Tick to become out of sync with the time entries somewhere else. So you really don't want to run payroll, pay somebody for 35 hours of work, and then for the next day for them to go edit their time and say, hey, why didn't I get paid for the 38 hours I did? I'm 3 hours short. Well, if you are locking the time entries, there's no opportunity for people to change them. And you also will know exactly which time entries you paid for or invoiced and which ones you haven't. Additionally, if you ever worried about things getting out of sync or not knowing how time's changed, when you export a CSV, you could see when the kind of an audit log. So you'll be able to see when time entries were edited and when they were created, so that you would know maybe someone's gone back and changed some time entries if that was ever a concern. So that's pretty much what we have on reporting. I'll look a little bit at user permissions now. So only certain people could ever edit time entries. And so we'll go through user permissions to get a feel for how these things work. So we have all of our names, and then there's 3 levels here. So you can either be a user. So Dr. Nick Riviera, he's going to be a user. And what a user can do is it's really need-to-know basis. So a user will only ever see their own time entries, projects they're assigned to, clients that they're working on projects for them. So if you had a big account, but you didn't want all your freelancers to know about it, just don't assign them to any projects for that client. They would never know about them. If you are a user, you're only ever going to see your own time entries. So if you run a report, you're not going to see anybody else's time entries. And then we've got the admins. So Maud Flanders, she's going to be set up as an admin. And what Maud has the ability to do is she can see any time entries, she can create projects, she can edit time entries and projects, she can report on anybody's work. So this is a pretty high level, lots of abilities, pretty much see anything inside of Tick. And then you get one account owner who has complete control. And what an account owner can do is pretty much everything an admin can do, plus can go to the settings page. So on the settings page, this is where you can pick your plan, set up integrations, change your company name, URL, currency. This is where you have kind of a little bit deeper control over the account. You can, turn off or edit some of the integrations you have turned on. And you can also, this is where you pick a plan. So one thing that's a little different for Tick versus some competitors is we don't charge per users. So you can have one person on the account or 400 people on the account. It'd be the same price for both. Everything's decided based on how many projects you're running. So if you're running one project, Tick is completely free. If you're running 10 projects, it's $19 a month and it goes up. The max out plan where you have access to everything and you can have as many projects as you need to, $150 a month. And something is only ever counted as a project if it's current, something you're working on now. And so as soon as you're done working on something and you archive it, it doesn't count towards your project budget. And so for most people or companies, this ends up being quite a bit cheaper. If you're running 10 projects and you have 10 people on your account, those are our competitors, that's going to be about $100 for you a month. And Tick, that would be $19. And the larger your team is, the greater those cost savings will be. And over here on account, this is where you could also check out our apps. You'll see all the different apps, and you could download ones that were really convenient for you. And you can also reach out to support. So we have a really good support team. They'll answer everything within an hour during normal business hours. And we're based out of Florida, so that's Eastern time. And but mostly they'll hop in on weekends and nights and try to help out with anything, any questions you may have.